Hello and welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. My name is Zach Kazan. I'm the editorial director at Worn and Wound. Welcome to 2026, brand new year of podcasting. I'm really excited to be bringing you the first episode of the Worn and Wound podcast here in January 2026. Really happy to be joined today by two of my fantastic colleagues. We've got Liam O'Donnell, Worn and Wound's videographer. Liam, how's it going?
It's great. Good to be back here in 2026.
Yeah, Happy New Year, man. It's great to see you.
You too. Likewise.
We've also got, making her Worn and Wound podcast debut, I believe it's your debut, correct me if I'm wrong, we've got Myra Shallon, Worn and Wound's event coordinator. Is that your current title, Myra? I know that everyone's title recently changed. I think I've got that right.
It's in flux, so it'll probably be updated by the end of January. But yes, event coordinator for now.
Okay, fantastic. Glad to hear it. Myra,
thank you.
Welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. It's absolutely fantastic to see you on the pod.
I'm really excited to be on the pod. I've been listening to the pod for a long time, so making my debut, it's truly a pleasure.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you. Today, on this episode of the Worn and Wound podcast, we're talking about the only thing that's really on our minds right now is what we did on our winter vacation. The office was closed for, like a week and a half or something. I haven't seen you guys in forever. I haven't even thought about watches and who knows how long. Everything was like loaded up and ready to go in the back end. It was on autopilot. I haven't had to touch my laptop. It's like, I was in vacation mode. I know you guys were too. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we did on vacation from a watch perspective, or maybe not. We'll see how it goes. Maybe we didn't even think about watches over break. Should be an interesting conversation. Before we get to that, wrist check is in order. First to 2026. Liam, what are you wearing?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing.
What happened? You've changed since 2025.
I'm taking a break.
You're taking a break? Wow, is this like a conscious decision, or did I just happen to catch you without a watch on?
Look, when I'm at home, I don't really need a watch on. And because I'm sitting at my desk, I tend to take my watch off anyway when I'm at the desk because it just gets scraped up on the desk. And if I don't necessarily need to add any new scratches, I'm not going to try. Because I'm working from home. And I just want to keep my watches in better condition than I can.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't always wear a watch when I'm sitting at my desk either. If I'm wearing a watch on a bracelet, I'll usually take that watch off when I'm, typing. But it's always kind of within reach. And I kind of, it's almost like a fidget spinner. Like if I'm in a meeting or something, I'll be playing with the clasp or the bezel or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And it also kind of sits like a desk clock too. I like to just sort of sit it so I can actually look at it while I'm working.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's pretty normal. I don't mean to make you seem like an outcast or something for not wearing a watch on a watch podcast. That's actually pretty normal behavior. So it's just funny that the first wrist check of the year is no watch. I think that's notable.
That's how we set the tone.
What are you wearing?
Oh my goodness. I'm totally not going to save us right now. Second wrist check of the year. I am also not wearing a watch. This is highly embarrassing.
No one got the memo.
But like Liam, I've been having a very easygoing morning, a very easygoing day, just jumped straight into work. I didn't think about it. But if I were to be wearing a watch, I'd be wearing one of my G-Shocks. That is my most comfortable watch at the moment for everyday use. So
okay. All right. Well, listen, gotta say, I'm not pleased. This is not a good start to the year.
We've got a long year ahead of us with plenty of time to wear watches.
It's going to be so long. It's going to be so long. This is how it's starting. This is not, all right. Well, I'm going to save us here. I am wearing a watch. I'm wearing my Zeitwinkel today. Just a great watch. Got a big date. I put this watch on January 1st. I like to change the date to the 1st on the 1st of the month. And I've been wearing it basically ever since. So yeah. My Zeitwinkel. It's my, the only watch being worn on this podcast at the moment, which is embarrassing, but that's the way
Look,
it is.
if you want, I can go and get one. I
can go grab one as well. Absolutely.
You guys have shown your true colors. So we're going to just kind of sit with that and let it be. All right. Let's move on to the main. Oh, actually, before we move on to the main topic, we've got to, Myra, we've got to spend some time introducing you, I think, to our listeners because you're new on the podcast, not new to the company. You've been with Worn and Wound for a little while right now. But why don't you just kind of give us the quick bio of who Myra Shallon is, and how did you come to watches? How did you come to Worn and Wound, and what is it that you do exactly as the event coordinator on Worn and Wound?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Zach. I have been with Worn and Wound since July of 24, so it's been a little bit over a year and a half now. It's been a great ride, but I've only been in the events industry since 2020, and My background in events started with venue management. So I learned the ins and outs of production, entering and exiting a venue. And then I moved on into producing. I worked on various corporate events. I worked in the art sphere, but my most interesting jobs have been in the brand experiential realm and in fashion. So naturally, brand experiential and fashion ties into watches because at the end of the day, we are trying to bring a real life experience to the consumer. We're trying to introduce them to the product in a way that's not so department store. It's more experiential. You get to go have fun. You get to attend an event and learn about all the perks and benefits of the product that's being presented. So fashion has really helped me launch into watches with ease. And the fashion clients I used to work with were more in the luxury realm. So that does go hand in hand at times with the watch world. Although I know our ethos kind of tends to step away from focusing on luxury, it is a perk to have when it comes to putting on high quality events.
Yeah.
And what I do for Worn and Wound is I work on the Wind Up Watch Fair. I handle all of the production. I handle all vendor communications. I handle venue communications. I also work on our showroom events here at House. And if the opportunity arises, I also work on any pop-up events that we may have around the city or in other cities around the United States. So that is what I do at Worn and Wound. And it's just a great group to work with. The events industry can be quite stressful. There's a lot of high stakes, especially the closer you get to executing an event. And working with such a great team has made that an enjoyable process. So I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, hearing you talk about like what you did in fashion as far as like the experiential events, like it really, there's such a close parallel between that and I think particularly like the showroom events that we do, at the office in Brooklyn, like, or in the showroom, rather, which is attached to the office in Brooklyn. Those events are so special because they really allow, the enthusiasts to kind of like get up close and personal with the watch and with, personalities in the industry, people behind the brands and so forth. It's so much more than just kind of like going to a boutique or going to a store. Like you really have like an experience there. And I think that that's like something that maybe we, happens a lot, but we kind of take for granted. There's a lot of work that goes into pulling that together. And you and the team that you guys work on and the partnerships and event staff just do such a great job, making those events special every single time.
Oh, thank you very much. I will say when it comes to our showroom events, one thing that I notice a huge difference in is the fact that our enthusiasts can come and actually get FaceTime with the owners of the brands. That's something that's unheard of in experiential. And the fact that we can provide that not only in our showroom events, but at every single booth at the Wind Up Watch Fair is just so amazing. And I know it's something that a lot of our audience looks forward to partaking in.
Yeah. Yep. No, I think that's a key to like maintaining enthusiasm in this hobby is sort of like, is getting up close and personal with the brands, not just the watches, but like the people behind the brands, developing relationships with them, because it's something that like you can do in this hobby, at any level. So yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing a little bit about what you do for Worn and Wound, Myra. That's fantastic. All right, well, let's shift to what we did on our break. I'm curious to hear how you guys spent your time over winter break. Liam, let's start with you. What did you do? Did you go anywhere? Were you wearing a watch on winter break, or were you taking? I mean,
people are sick of hearing me talk about this watch, but I only took one watch with me, and it was the Tudor Pelagos. And it was on almost the entire time that I was up there. So that was the one watch that I took, and it was quite liberating.
Where'd you go?
Just to take the one watch. I went to Massachusetts and Connecticut. My wife's family is from there, and so we always drive up there every Christmas and Thanksgiving and spend time with them. So we rent a car, drive it up to Boston, and it's just a much quieter, slower pace of life, and it's lovely. It's a nice sort of break from the chaos that is New York. So I look forward to it all the time, and my son loves spending time with his cousin and his grandparents. So it's just a really great reset.
Yeah. You said that you did partake in some like new kind of like hands-on like activities when you were when you were up there. Tell us about what you were actually doing.
Sure. So with a lot of time in our hands and not a lot to do up there, I found myself fixing a few things. So my son's shoes broke, and I decided to take it upon myself. And you'll come to know this about me with just about everything that I do. It's that I always want to do it myself, and I think that I can always do it better than anyone else can. So I took it upon myself to fix his shoes and sew back on new pieces of Velcro. And now he has working shoes again. We don't have to replace them with another pair. I'm also kind of I guess, thrifty and frugal like that. I don't like to.
I was going to say that seems like kind of that's thrift coded. I think.
Yeah,
is
totally.
Yeah, repairing.
No, and I like when everyone says no, just throw it away. I take that as a challenge to fix it. So
yeah.
I did that. I also fixed my jacket. It had some holes on the cuffs, so I told myself how to darn, and covered up some of the patches in my jacket, so it has a few extra years of life in it.
Yeah,
and watched a lot of videos. I watch a lot of YouTube on how to do stuff. That's probably where I spend the most time. If there was like a life wrapped, I think like 80% of my time would be spent on YouTube.
I similar. That's an important skill, to be able to darn something. I do not know how to do that. Myra, are you able to darn a garment if necessary?
Only like a skirt. I did have a little sewing era. I as well share the same passion as you, Liam, in being thrifty. So when I can repair, I do, but I can't make anything exact. Like a true garment. No.
Yeah, no, that's not a skill not a skill that I have. So Liam, you said you went up there with the Pelagos. You said that was
the first gen Pelagos from 2012, the 2-line ETA movement version. I love it. I think that this watch was in our most worn watches video as well. I've worn this, I'd say 5 out of 7 days a week. It just gets the most love at the moment. But I think it should change that in 2026. I think I should try and give some of my other watches a little more love and mix it up a little more. But yeah,
for sure. Now, for how long were you up there in the Boston?
Yeah, it was like a little over a week and a half.
Okay. So would you ever consider like bringing more than one watch on a trip like that? Or is this sort of
just in the past, and I just never got around to wearing. That's why I only brought one this time.
Yeah.
Because that almost always happens. I bring like 2 or 3 watches, and I guess out of laziness, I just never end up wearing any other watch. So I thought I might as well just make the choice simple, save myself the trouble and the potential of possibly losing a watch or something like that. So just mitigate that from the get-go.
That's always my fear, is if I bring a bunch of watches anywhere, I'm going to lose them. It just seems like you're putting yourself in harm's way unnecessarily. I find that the only time I bring multiple watches anywhere is when I'm going to something watch related. Like if I'm going to the office, as I am later this week, I'll have multiple watches because we're going to make some content with them or whatever. But yeah, if I'm like going on a, just a, family vacation or, whatever, I'm not thinking I'd need to bring a bunch of watches. Myra, how about you? I know that, you're kind of like new to the watch world, but do you find yourself like traveling with multiple watches? Would you ever even consider that? Or does that just seem like insane?
No, it's funny. I did travel with watches this time around. I ended up taking a trip to go see my family back in LA, and I took 3 watches with me. One of the watches I took was my most worn watch of the year, the Bruen Worn and Wound Metric Chrono Regulator. Love that watch. My family loves that watch. Everyone keeps asking me when I'm going to gift them that watch for Christmas, which is great. And then I also ended up taking my G-Shock digital analog with the clear band. I'm not sure if I'm really saying the model of that correctly, but I do love that watch because it can effortlessly, through radio signal, which I'm learning about, change time zones without me having to reset it. So I definitely took that watch. That was on my wrist when I was traveling, and once I landed. And then I also snagged for my birthday a cute little vintage Lady Elgin from the Watch Preserve while they were here. I think it was in September or August. And I ended up wearing that watch as like a dress watch whenever I'd go out with my family, go out to dinner, doing something a little more elevated. That would be the watch I wear. So I did travel with not 1, not 2, but 3 watches.
Okay, well that's impressive. That honestly, that's pretty that's pretty good. How do you like being a vintage watch owner?
Well, I will say, in general, I love vintage thrift, especially when it comes to clothing. That's initially where my passion for vintage finds started. Have been thrifting for over 15, 16 years now. So it was a very natural, I guess, introduction for me. And there's a natural appeal that the watches are vintage. Like I always think a vintage piece carries history, carries a story. There's a craftsmanship about vintage watches that you might not see in modern day watches. This watch that I have, it's and correct me if I'm wrong, it's a wind up watch. It's a mechanical. Am I right about that?
Sure.
And that's the first and only wind up watch I've ever had. And from my understanding, that's kind of like more of a classic style.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong.
No, I mean, that's any mechanical, I mean, that's how watches have worked for as long as watches have existed. The, quartz powered, battery operated watches exist on a much shorter timeline, compared to, any sort of mechanical watch. So yeah, that's interesting. It's just, I always find it fascinating when people just kind of like get into vintage watches, because it's so different owning a vintage watch as opposed to a modern watch. Have you ever dabbled in vintage at all, Liam, or have you been mostly a modern guy?
Yeah, absolutely. That was kind of where I think my inroads into watches certainly began with Red Bar. And I think it was kind of at the zenith of vintage watches. I'd always see James Landon there and all the analog shift guys. And
Sure.
So, vintage watches were always in my orbit. And I certainly developed a love for them there, especially being, much more affordable, at least in those early days for me. I feel like it was just sort of right before vintage watches really came to just become sort of more of like a cultural lexicon. I feel like, with eBay and the RealReal and stuff like that, I feel like vintage is certainly made a comeback in a mass market kind of way. And I think it was sort of right around that 2017, 2018, 2019 era when it was just, things were still kind of under the radar and it was still super, super niche. And then, I feel like Instagram kind of really rocketed them to where they are now. And so, that was my introduction to vintage watches. And I was absolutely blown away to sort of learn that for some time, sort of before the era of the internet, that you could sort of buy vintage Rolexes at like a fraction of the cost. Kind of no one really wanted them at a point. People only wanted new. And so you could pick up, these vintage watches. And it's one of those things. It's like if I went back in time, like I'd like go and buy lots of vintage watches in like the 60s, 70s, and 80s because you could, and I'm sort of envious of sort of people who got into watch collecting around that time because I think there was probably a lot of great finds back then.
Yeah. I mean, vintage has had a wild ride in the last, decade or so. There was a period of time where it was quite easy to get into, vintage watches, and vintage watches were affordable and plentiful,
exactly,
in good condition. And then the market just kind of like took off, and it became a lot harder to find affordable vintage watches in good condition. And I think it's kind of like evened out a little bit. I think, right now is, maybe like perhaps a better time to get certain, vintage watches. They're not necessarily like blue chip vintage watches, but more, like kind of like everyday pieces are, they're kind of like coming back on the market and a little easier to access. So it's such a different experience when you're shopping for and owning and wearing a vintage watch, just because they're a little bit finicky. They look different. They just kind of like say something else about like the wearer, to the rest of the world than a modern watch. But that's a good thing, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a really low pressure kind of way to get into watches. You're not sort of, when you go and buy a modern watch, for anyone who has had that experience from a retailer or from an authorized dealer, while it's a very fun and exciting thing to do, it's also, quite sort of daunting to fork over, for 4, possibly 5 figures worth of money to buy something that can be pretty overwhelming for a lot of people, or just not even something that they're looking for. And so I feel like vintage really sort of gives people a way into the hobby and just watches in general at a really sort of affordable price point, and a fun way too, especially with the history that comes along with a lot of these watches.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would have to agree in regards to, like, say, picking out a watch out of the showroom. It really has taken me a little bit of time to get my feet wet. Buying a vintage watch has definitely like opened those doors with a lot more ease. There's not much pressure. The price point's great. But the more I get into this hobby, the more I start to solidify and really define what it is I like. So now as I walk through the showroom, I kind of keep my eyes open, and I can already tell like what type of pieces I gravitate towards, what kind of styles. I think the one thing I would love to grow within like my watch knowledge and just wearing watches on a regular is functionality. It would be great to learn more about specs, design, function. Would this be used for? How will this make my life easier? And I think that's the next step for me. So I am really excited about, just diving in.
Yeah. Imagine that, a watch that makes your life easier. That is a fascinating concept. Myra, you mentioned you went to California. That you're from California. Tell us about what you did while you were out there. Your California trip.
So I went back home for the holidays to visit family and friends. For the first 25 years of my life, I lived in California. So a solidified Southern California girl, but I've been out here for 8 years and in New York and out of state for 10 total. So it's been quite a while. I do feel like there's a blend of personas when I touch base with my home state and bring along my new life. But I was visiting family and friends and just connecting, spending time together. The weather out there was gorgeous for the first 4 days. So I was definitely not sad about missing out on the snowstorm that hit the East Coast while I was gone. So I took a lot of walks, did a couple of hikes. I went to hang out with a friend in the LA area, and like a true New Yorker, I took the Metrolink out there and decided to explore the transit system. Since, I don't drive here, there's no need for a license, but
Sure.
Navigating the transit system out in California was very interesting, especially in the LA area.
Yeah, it's very explain to people why it's so different, because Los Angeles is like notoriously a place where you need a car. It's a driver's city. That's the conventional wisdom anyway. So yeah, like talk a little bit about like the differences in the mass transit between New York and LA.
So the mass transit in LA is not quite mass. It's like
Yeah.
like 4 sections of Los Angeles as a whole, starting from downtown, maybe spanning out like 10 miles north, south, east, and west. But the stops are really just geared towards tourism. Anyone who's visiting California doesn't want to drive. I thought it was amazing that I could hop on a train, avoid all the traffic that I typically would sit in going from my mother's house to Universal Studios. But the ride was so short. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. I feel like transit in LA only works if you want to only stay in downtown LA. And that's not great. What I love about New York is literally every other block there's a stop. You can choose between 2 stops to get to one destination. You just have to count how many blocks you're going to walk in one direction or the other.
Yep.
California, it's just kind of, once you're at the train station, you have your feet. That's it. Maybe an Uber. It's not as convenient as transportation in New York, but it was fun to explore because during the time that I lived there, I was an avid commuter, driving all the time. So to kind of step into the transit system as a visitor, quote unquote, it was a great experience.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense that it'd be geared more towards tourists for sure. And then I know before we hit record, you mentioned that you were gifted a bike. So it's another type of transit that we're talking about. Tell us whatever you wanted to share about the bike you were gifted.
Yeah, of course. So I do a lot of mutual aid work on the weekends, and my team knows that I lug around a cart and take New York Transit in order to get from place to place to pick up donations. I was gifted a bike from my mutual aid group, and it was a brand new bike, probably ridden 4 times, gifted to me by another community member, and it was free $99. I was just so surprised and shocked, but I used to ride bikes a lot when I was younger, and they were mainly mountain bikes since I lived by the mountains. So I've never really ridden a hybrid bike or a commuter bike. I'm kind of tempted to ride to work once the weather gets better, because all in all, the commute is only a 15-minute difference, whether I take the bike or whether I take the train. So I might as well get some fresh air, a good workout in. After I came back from California, I definitely took the bike on a couple of rides through Central Park. I took a sunrise ride this morning. It was just a great way to start the day. So I think that's going to be a new addition to my 2026, flow.
Yeah, that's great. Warner Mound is full of bicyclists. There's many. Yeah, there've always been many bicycles, kind of parked at the Warner Mound office. As someone who, I'm in New York, maybe once a month or every 6 weeks or so. Something that I will never quite get used to is the pace of the bicyclists, like in the city, like it blows my mind. It seems so dangerous. I'm so surprised that like more people do not just like die, all the time. And unfortunately some people, like, it is dangerous. Like there are injuries, of course.
It is, yeah.
But like, I'll never ever get used to seeing that. It just seems like it's terrifying. I don't know.
When I first moved to the city, I was telling anyone who would listen to me, I'm going to be a bike rider in the city. I'm going to commute everywhere. My mother was like, your legs don't work walking. How are you going to be a bike rider? You're far too clumsy for that. But during COVID, I really had the opportunity, especially since no one was outside essentially to ride my city bike and really get to know the terrain, really get to know which areas have the protected bike lanes, which path would be the best route and the safest route essentially to get to work. I was mapping out my commute the other day, and I have an option between like 4 bridges that I can take into Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan Bridge. There's a lot of options, and there's a lot of safe routes that kind of take you off the busy path of traffic, which is great. So I'll keep you posted on how that goes.
Okay,
good for you.
No, definitely let us know.
Cycling is great. I'm an avid cyclist myself, and
that's right. You went to. I mean, you covered a Tudor cycling event for us.
I did. That's right.
Specifically because of your cycling, history. Yeah.
No, but I agree. It is very dangerous, and there's too few sort of protected lanes. But retroactively adding that to a city that wasn't designed to ride bicycles in the first place is very tricky.
For sure.
But what I will say is that it's the best way to learn a city and to learn where you live. I feel like with cycling, you rely a lot more on visual landmarks and learning where your route is. And so to me, visiting any city is a great way to learn. Riding around a city that you're visiting is a great way to learn, sort of where you are and get yourself situated. But specifically in New York, there's just so many places that are so hard to get to by, car or train. And so like a bike is an excellent way to sort of get out of New York and see some really beautiful things. There's a really popular route up through the George Washington Bridge and sort of up through New Jersey, up into Nyack, sort of following the Hudson River north. And it's stunning. I don't think anyone would know about it if you hadn't gone there on a bike. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. That's a good tip. I agree. It makes a lot of sense that seeing a city, navigating a city through on a bike, just you're forced to learn it, kind of like innately that way. So that makes a lot of sense. Well, I guess I can talk about my winter break.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So you guys ventured further away than I did. I think I might have left Concord city limits like maybe 2 or 3 times in the time that I was on vacation, but that was by design. I kind of just wanted to hunker down and relax and stay home. The watch I wore through most of break was the Christopher Ward Loco, the limited edition that we did with them. They were very kind to send me the rubber strap that the watch is worn on. I bought it on the bracelet, and then the rubber strap came like right before I went on break. So I took the opportunity to change out the bracelet for the strap. And I wasn't quite sure how I was going to take to it, whether I'd like it or not, because I really like the bracelet a lot on the Loco. But I've really come to enjoy wearing it on the strap. I think the strap is great. It's incredibly comfortable. Once I kind of got it like dialed in, with the right, the right size, it just felt very natural. And I like the way it looks too. They sent me a black one. It comes in a handful of different colors, I think. But I really liked it. It was, like I said, very comfortable, very easy to wear. And it was very easy to just wear, all day throughout the entire break, essentially.
What type of clasp mechanism does it have? It's
a simple kind of folding clasp. Nothing fancy. But that makes it kind of like, easy to wear, lightweight. There isn't a lot of bulk to it. So yeah, it's a very simple, very simple strap, very simple clasp. But it's it's thin and pliable and comfortable, and was just a great kind of way to just wear the watch, at home for for a week plus, like being a couch potato, and just watching movies and hanging out, and not really doing much of anything except relaxing as much as possible. So that was kind of like my watch story, over break. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, of course I saw a lot of movies. I'm a big movie fan, as listeners know, and as you guys know. And on Christmas Eve, I went and saw Marty Supreme, the new Josh Safdie movie starring Timothée Chalamet, about a competitive ping pong or table tennis, player, and then he's based on loosely based on an actual person, but there are many liberties taken with his story. Really cool movie. I highly recommend it. It's a really cool period piece. It really captures like 1950s New York in a really interesting way. So that's, it's just a very cool thing to watch. Chalamet's performance is very, very good. The ping pong action is also like very compelling. I thought like it's in many ways sort of like a good old fashioned like sports movie in many ways. The thing I want to call out specifically about the movie is the performance from Kevin O'Leary, who is Mr. Wonderful on Shark Tank and has been kind of like part of the watch community for a number of years now. He appears on many different YouTube channels, and I think he might even have his own YouTube channel that's watch related at this point. And I have to say, like, I have sort of like, I don't have a great reaction to Kevin O'Leary normally. Like, I kind of find his whole persona to be a little grating. I don't love it. And whenever I see Kevin O'Leary pop up on a watch channel on YouTube, I'm just always like, what are we doing? Like, why is he talking about watches again? I don't love it.
Next.
It just all seems very, I don't know. It's all just very transactional. He's just always selling something. It's not, it doesn't seem authentic, whatever. And I was a little leery of paying to see a movie that stars Kevin O'Leary and contributing to that guy's bottom line. But I gotta say, he is fantastic in Marty Supreme. Like the big surprise of this movie is the Kevin O'Leary performance. And I think the reason he's so good is because he's just perfectly cast. He's cast as a pen company executive who is sort of like alternates between sort of like a foolish kind of person who you feel like maybe sort of like blundered his way into success, but is also at times like a very intimidating kind of like heavy, like he's sort of like the foil to the Marty Supreme character, and sort of like controls the arc of that character's career in some ways, has a lot of power. And I think he was cast because his persona in real life is this kind of like unlikable rich guy who's remains compulsively watchable, and that's exactly what you get in Marty Supreme. So it's just like a really brilliant bit of casting. And he's not an actor. He's not a professional actor. So like his presence on screen is always really interesting. And I thought he was really, really good. Very few notes. It's just like a really, really good performance.
That's cool. I'm excited to see that now.
Yeah. No, it's a good movie. I definitely recommend it. He double wrists in the movie as he does in real life. I didn't specifically clock the watches that he was wearing in Marty Supreme. I'm sure it's been documented, probably multiple YouTube channels,
sure.
like Kevin O'Leary himself, I'm guessing. But yeah, so he brought a little bit of his watch, enthusiasm into the movie, and just a great way to spend Christmas Eve, I gotta say.
Curious to know how Kevin ended up in that film. Now, was it did they write this role specifically for him, or did he beat out another actor who auditioned for that role and he was just the right fit? I'd be curious to know how that came to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that, Josh Safdie's done a bunch of interviews for, in the promotion of this movie. I'm sure it's been mentioned at some point. There's a lot. This movie has I read somewhere, it has close to 200 speaking parts. It's just wow. So that's the casting must have been an enormous, undertaking. But there's a lot of really interesting people in the movie. Like David Mamet is in the movie. He plays a theater director, not a stretch, for him. And there's a bunch of other kind of notable, New York City-based character actors in the movie. So I get the sense that Josh Safdie and his team were very deliberate in how they filled these highly specific roles for the film. So yeah, I don't know offhand how Kevin O'Leary found his way into the movie, or if there were other people up for the role, but it was kind of a nice bit of happenstance, because he's really kind of makes a lot of sense for this character.
No, that's cool. I think that's great. I think that finding the right person for the right role, regardless of who they are, I think is a wonderful thing, especially when you get to see it sort of as part of an ensemble on screen. And it's not just because someone has star power, it's because they just fit that role really well. And I'm pleasantly surprised to hear that he nailed it. I think that's super cool, even though he's not my favorite person either, just based on sort of his on-screen personality. Not because I know him personally, but yeah, I'm now very genuinely excited to sort of go and watch this and look for his role in that film.
Yeah. Myra, this is your chance to say anything you want about Kevin O'Leary. If you want to get on a microphone and say anything about Mr. Wonderful, this is your opportunity.
I might offend Mr. Wonderful by not knowing who he is. Mind you, I am still new to the watch world. Catch me on the next podcast, Zach. I'm going to be ready.
Well, the next podcast will be you and Mr. Wonderful, probably.
Oh my goodness! Well, he's definitely going to throw some Rotten Tomatoes my way.
Yeah. Guys, anything else you want to share about your winter breaks before we break for this episode?
I think this is a good place to wrap up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Myra, how about you? Any last words from California or thoughts on the winter break that just was?
I can't believe how quickly it flew by. I can't believe it's 2026. Like, didn't we just go on our last winter break in 24? Mm-hmm. Here we are, so a little shocked at how quickly the year is flying.
Yeah. They always go by faster and faster every year. It really is true what they say. Well, I think you're right, Liam. I think it is a good place to cut it for the day. I just want to wish everyone who's listening a happy new year. I hope everyone is enjoying their January so far and had a happy and healthy holiday season. And we, of course, look forward to many more podcasts in 2026. This will probably be the only one with multiple bare wrists on the wrist check.
Oh, goodness.
We see. I don't know. But stay tuned next week to find out if we can break that trend. Myra and Liam, thank you so much for joining me on the first podcast of 2026. Thank you to all of our listeners for sticking with us. As always, we will see you again very soon. Until then, take care.